How are we all doing, Melbourne? Oh, the mic just died. There we go. One sec. All right, I'm just going to plug in a clicker. Very Web 2 of us to have clickers. Oh, fantastic. Okay, there's like 1,000 of you. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, folks, for coming over. You're at the Greythorn offices. They've got this really cool screen which shuts down if I get too close to it because it thinks that you're too close and your eyes are going to hurt. It's very smart, too smart for its own good. My name is Mark. I'm from the Aus DeFi Association, co-founder of that. It's been around for a year and a half. We really appreciate, if I can talk, all you guys coming down here. Thanks for turning on the cold weather. It's too warm in Sydney. You're absolutely right. But we begin today by acknowledging the people on the land on which we gather, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and future. And go Matildas, right? Like they got so close. Who's going to watch the game on Saturday? Yes, a few of you? Okay, good. All right, I will too. If you can recommend any bars or pubs around here in Melbourne. I used to live here, but everything's changed since COVID. But we're going to go through a few talks today, and first of all, if you haven't been to one of these events before, the way that it works is I'll do a few updates of what's been going on around the other cities. This started in Sydney, but it has grown to 7 cities now. Melbourne, we used to do stuff here monthly, but then bear market vibes hit, and we're starting back again on every second week, that'd be great, every second month or so. And we thank our sponsors, Sensan, we thank our sponsors, Stables, the sponsors that you see here, and for providing the venue. Can I get a hands up from all the Greythorn folk here? Put your hands up. You can see Jay, Chirag, Ryan somewhere here, a few others, the people that you met on the way in. We'll talk about Greythorn Asset Management soon. So for the first 10 minutes, just really quickly, and we are recording this as well. Is it pivoted? Okay, you know what, you can actually move the phone, like the phone itself, just, there we go. It's like a kick, there you go. Oh, okay, maybe not. Wonder what's going on there. I'll figure it. Actually, I don't want you to have to hold it that way. I'm so sorry. Okay, that's all right. We got Rochelle here from Blockchain at APAC to save the day. So we're trying to record this. Normally in Sydney, we would live stream, we record, we put it on YouTube. I will do what I can with this, and then there's some other photos and stuff. So we've got a really jam-packed event today. If you want to scan, this has got a few, this is on Linktree, so it's a few things from Aus DeFi, the socials, the YouTube, the newsletter, all the different meetup pages. That's looking great. It's even... It should be. I don't know. You know what? It'll be fine. I'll adjust it in post-edit because I've learned how to do Premiere Pro because you just have to as a founder, right? Anyway, yes, exactly. And AI is helping as well. There's some really cool AI tools. All right, so here's what we're going to go through. So Greythorn, CoinTree, Stables, Sassano. Mr. Sassano is in the house. There he is right there. Okay, and then we're going to have just some fun. So usually with these things, it's networking, as you saw. Then we get to the interviews and then some more networking. And this is all about, building the connections. The thing you need to leave with here today is make a connection or connections with people that you haven't. Just continue to grow. Bring new friends into this space. That's how we grow, even in the bear market. Really quickly, the last time we were in Melbourne was in June. I apologise, we didn't get here in July. Oh. There we go. So yeah, we had fire blocks. This was over at a cool bar called Valhalla Bar underneath Deloitte's offices, which is also where Blockchain Week was, and we didn't mean to do that, so it was just serendipity. We've got fire blocks on stage there. Their CEO from New York flew down, so that was great. And we had a recap of Blockchain Week. We'll put it out on our blog. Other people did that too, from Sydney to Melbourne to Oshi Gallery. I forget what suburb that is in, but that was really cool. And then there was Canberra. So Canberra had some really... What's going on there? Do I have to stand somewhere in particular? Am I in a dead zone? Okay, I'm in the bear zone. So Block Unlock was this Canberra thing, which was really cool. And we're going to start to do more events there. We were even in Newcastle and Adelaide. We're just trying to pump it up in terms of like getting people out there, but there was some really great speakers at Canberra. There was the Digital Asset Conference, Rochelle and Steve. Is Steve here?
He's still at RMIT, but he'll be coming after.
Okay, so Steve will be here soon. And yeah, so the Blockchain APAC crew, half of it, I would say the better half, is here, and they put on an amazing conference for the Digital Asset Conference in Sydney. And there was a gala event as well. This is one of the only times you'll see me or my colleagues at Not Centralised in suits. Not matching suits because that would be weird. But yeah, it was really great to recognise all the cool people that are working in this space, from TradFi and the Web 2.5 kind of folk to the real degens in Web 3, so that was great. More of that kind of stuff to come. Then we had a Sydney event a few weeks ago. Rochelle, you're on here. And we had some great speakers. Folks from Blockchain NZ came over. There was a lot of international folks for the first time for us, and that was great. And then Perth had an event. So Perth is kind of growing like Sydney was, where it was like 5 people at the first event, then 10, then 20, and this was 40. So it's really great to see all the cities grow. When we came to Melbourne, you guys just had massive numbers straight away, so well done. And then, all right, a couple of things that were interesting. So Web3 has been a space that's been, I would say, not really well received in the mainstream media. You've only heard FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as we like to call it in this space, or a lot of accusations, which were deserved with FTX and Terra Luna and all those things. But it was really nice to start seeing in Parliament mentions of some of the companies, including mine, which was, I'll toot my own horn there, but Unis and Imperium Markets as well, being spoken about in Parliament for digital asset innovation and how Australia has a lot of great innovation happening here. It was from an opposition leader, so we'll see, how much sway that has, but it's great to actually start seeing that being spoken about more, because blockchain tech really truly has a lot of power to change what we're doing in traditional commerce. The other thing is, in Sydney, we had a revamped podcast. So you can see the background there on the right-hand side. It's blocked a little bit, but usually you would see on that top right-hand side out the window the Opera House. Harbour Bridge is on the other side, and that is at a venue that sponsored us called Crypto Lulu. So they're a restaurant where with an NFT you get different perks. So kind of like what Gary Vaynerchuk was trying to do with Flyfish or something like that overseas. So it's something similar. So, and we've revamped the YouTube as well. So there's going to be some really cool interviews. It covers both blockchain and AI because we see it as being under this basically umbrella of emerging technology. And we've got a partnership with another association, which I also happen to run, called the Data Science and AI Association. And so we get to do some cool stuff. So hands up here who's using ChatGPT in anything. Okay. And to those that aren't, please do, because it's a lifesaver. I feel like it's like pre-ChatGPT and post-ChatGPT. I don't know how I can go back to the other side. Anyway, if anyone is interested, there is a hackathon event going on tomorrow where I think it's presentations and pitches and stuff. So you can actually see these people that have done stuff online, and they're going to be doing that at RMIT Story Hall. If you're interested, if you go to web3hackfest.net, code is DeFi. There still should be some free tickets to that, so I'll be judging in the afternoon. They go on until Saturday, so check that out. And it's crossover between Web3 and AI, okay? All right, now we're gonna get over to the interviews. So if I could get Ryan and Chirag from Greythorn to come on down. Hey, Mike's over there. And my wonky camera is over there.
Chirag, is it just me? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Are we gonna sit? Maybe it's because I was, am I like in direct line? Should I sit over? What if I sit here? Okay, hi everyone.
Should we just share the same microphone? Oh.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's, yeah, actually let's do that. We'll share a mic. Hopefully that's okay for the recording. You know what? I'm going to figure it out in the post-edit. This is a problem for me to solve and stuff later. Okay, so now here's the interesting thing. Running around and doing all these events, you get to be prepared usually, and you have folks that will do the camera stuff. And now all of my questions are on that camera that's recording. So this is going to be, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, the camera, yeah. I have a way with words. So we're going to do this very ad hoc. For the people here that don't know about Greythorn, can you tell us a little bit more about it, why you guys started this?
Sure. So funny you mentioned that because before anyone came in, I'm Ryan, by the way. If someone came in earlier and he said like, so are you Greythorn? I was like, yeah. He said, I've never heard of Greythorn. I think that is deliberate, unfortunately. But Greythorn started in 2017. We have been in Melbourne for the last 7 years, but we didn't actually do any kind of branding. But here's just an introduction of us. At the core of Greythorn, we are an investment firm. So we run our own fund. And in the fund, well, a lot of it's a liquid strategy, so a lot into the large caps, high growth potential. I guess we'll talk a bit more about that later. And you also see on your left, Greythorn Digital. That's where we do a lot of our seed stage venture cap. We could like to call ourselves a venture builder. We are helping some projects here in Australia. One of them is Portergate. It's a dark pool. They're based out in Sydney. Gemma's the founder. Some of you might know her. Sort of what we do here, we help them. If they have an idea, we come to them. We provide development work. We help them with the UI, UX, our website. We do marketing for them. We raise funds for them as well. Really anything from stage 0 to stage 1, and then from 1 to 10.
Maybe it isn't the mic.
Yeah?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, try again.
Testing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything from stage.
Yeah, anything from stage 0 to stage 1, right from the onset, if you have an idea, we help you design a token economy. We help you to sort of think about where you want to go in your direction. And then from 1 to 10, where we expand your offering. We are strong in Asia. I'm Singaporean. We have an office in Singapore as well. We're connected in Hong Kong, in Dubai, and a lot of the network and a lot of the contacts that we have are based there as well. So what we provide here is an avenue for Australian companies to sort of tap into the Asian market.
Fantastic. And speaking of Singapore, is anyone going to Token 2049 here? There's a few of you. Hit me up after, because there is a Telegram group of the Aussies that are heading over, so that we can, if anyone goes missing and ends up down a laneway they shouldn't, we can help them out. So.
Or look for me. I'm pretty being Singaporean for the last 30 over years.
We're going to follow you then in terms of places to go, not go. It's really interesting what you guys are doing, because you're with the digital asset arm. It's not just that you're investing into the space, but you're also helping the builders. And so you get a really unique lens. And you're also running events like this. In a way, we're very similar in terms of what we do at Not Centralized. But given what you've seen before, being in it since 2017, how would you say things have kind of changed in terms of, we've had the rug pulls, we've had the things that haven't worked, and people have kind of lost faith and confidence. Now that you've seen things building up in this space and you guys remain, and you're seeing some really exciting projects like Portalgate, how do you feel that we get out of this bear market and actually provide the real good value, the utility, the good news stories out to the wider world? What are your thoughts on how we actually get that done?
So the rug pulls that we are very used to today isn't that different from in 2017. In 2017, it was the era of the ICOs. All you needed at the time was a PowerPoint, a white paper, and you're raising 20, 30, 50 million. That isn't really so different. I'm not sure has anyone ever used Ether Delta here? Yeah. Do you remember how crappy it was? Yeah, they were literally you're trading against at best 20, 30 other people. Dexes at that point was unusable, right? A lot of us had to use centralized exchanges, and we got used to that. But we can see that is really over the years it has changed a lot, right? Right now we have GMX, we have Quenta, all these DEX platforms that you can do leverage up to 50x. Rollbit you can do leverage up to 1000x. You can see that there is a just super sort of growth within this sector. And I think that's also where our focus is, a lot on decentralized finance, a lot of seeing a mirroring of the finance world. What we saw in traditional finance, we're starting to build it out in the decentralized finance world. I think we're still very small, but that's definitely where our focus is, trying to get DeFi to a point whereby it's smooth, whether you're bridging, whether you're swapping. I think we are almost there. I think we're good about 60, 70%. But if you're a keen DeFi user, it is still a experience that isn't fantastic. And of course, if you're on ETH, then the gas prices you're paying is just ridiculous at this point.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think is not solved yet. Even on Arbitrum, you're paying 20 cents now. Optimism, a few cents, but I think we're still not quite there yet, and that's really where our focus is.
It's interesting that we're seeing more mainstream businesses come into this space, whether it's PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. I mean, we've got stables here. Where's Erez? He's around here somewhere. Oh, right here. It's not in my peripheral, sorry. Seeing these mainstream kind of things happen and move into this space, do you think that that's helping change the narrative a bit, given that we're now seeing how crypto is actually used in the real world? It's like, how do you use Bitcoin? Are you going to buy some bread with Bitcoin? You're going to buy another 19,000, whatever it was, how many Bitcoin to get a 19 Bitcoin to get a pizza or whatever it was. Are we still going to do that stuff like that? Or now we're seeing stable coins and that kind of innovation. Are you seeing that we're going to have that more mainstream kind of moment with more businesses coming into the space and providing utility? Is that where you see us heading?
Yeah, 100%. I think, 6-7 years ago, using stables to pay for anything, you could never buy a coffee. And Bitcoin, you probably would never be able to buy a coffee. But with stables, 6-7 years ago, well, it's just not possible. But we are already seeing that in places like Dubai, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, a lot of the transactions are just through USDC now. And I think that's where it continue to grow. And we welcome more businesses to come in to sort of build this up. It's a bit disappointing that I think recently in Australia, there was some pause in the direction of stablecoins. I think some of the banks shut down, stablecoin on-off ramps. I think there's still a lot of work that we have to do to sort of tell them that we are okay, tell them that this is here to stay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a more risk-off kind of approach being taken by the banks. There's two sides to that, I definitely see, but it's interesting to see that I definitely feel here in Australia, the groups are more likely to come together than we've seen overseas. I mean, I haven't been overseas in the US, but just seeing what the climate is like there compared to here. I mean, when we've had events in Sydney, we've had regulators in the room. They come to these events and stuff to learn what is going on at the grassroots. We've had the banks here. We've got amazing folks from both traditional finance and decentralized finance here. On that note, do you think that it's more communication that's necessary, or do we need to actually have more real world kind of showcases? Or is it a matter of working with the banks and getting some roundtables going, for example, and figuring out like what is the reason why there's these pauses? Like, is it something that the community of Web3 needs to solve that the banks just don't have the capability at the moment, given everyone's doing AI stuff? The capability at the moment to add on more manpower for the risk departments that are needed to be able to monitor this kind of stuff. Is it a matter of, do you think Web3 needs to up its game more, or do we just sit back and wait? What would you say to that?
I think the banks are driven by different agendas, right? On one hand, they are trying to push out their own CBDCs. We're seeing with a few banks already. But I think above it all, it is a question of the market isn't big enough. Maybe here in Australia it isn't big enough for the banks to have to consider, regulating or putting more effort into regulating the system. As I think from their point of view, and I may be wrong, is that a lot of the cryptocurrency transactions are poorly audited. There is a poor paper trail. They feel uncomfortable with that. It is a legacy system. But really, I think what we can do aside from educating them, it's really just being more involved and more people coming up, such as like Stables, Poltergate, they're all Australians doing new projects, getting the word in, hey, this is, we are building, come support us. Get more people involved, get Bitcoin, get ETH into the hands of more people. I think that's the way to go. Yeah.
You mentioned Portalgate there. Let's talk about that a little bit more because it's interesting what you guys are doing there. Did you guys know, for example, the fact that if you have a transaction between yourself and a counterparty, someone else, you can see their history of transactions. As soon as you've done that transaction, you click on their account on any Block Explorer, layer 1 or layer 2, the fact that you've got their OX ETH address, even though you might not memorize that because you've had that transaction. Look, you might memorize it if they've got vanity plates. Like we've got ausdefi.eth. You can look us up. You can see our transactions. You can see who's bought our NFTs. Real world businesses and even people are going to have a hard time coming into this space and what they're supposed to just hot swap wallets here and there. It's that extra layer. We're used to Google sign-on. We're used to ease. We're used to Web 2 worlds. So Portalgate is really interesting. Can you talk to us a bit more about that? Because you guys are starting to solve some privacy-related stuff there. It's a really interesting project.
Yeah. Just to clarify, we are investors in Portalgate, and of course we help them build out their product, everything from their development to marketing. But I'm not the direct founder of Portalgate, so that's something that, just to clarify. But Portalgate essentially is a dark pool, right? So what is happening now, as Mark said, any transactions that you do, it's very clear on the blockchain. You could, if you wanted, you just need a Wi-Fi connection. You could see any ETH address. You could see when was the last time they transacted, how many transactions they had over the past 5 years. And that is a privacy issue, right? A lot of times we do not want to be tracked. A lot of times we don't want people to know how much we have in our wallets. We spend a lot of time, a lot of money just swapping around and doing cross-chains to sort of make sure that we are not doxed. Portalgate solves that, right? Portalgate solves that by, first of all, being compliant. So everyone that's onboarded with Portalgate is KYC. And being KYC, you then be able to enter a pool where you can trade. The difference is that once you enter that pool, no one's going to know that the funds are coming from you. But you do know that everyone in the pool is clean. So no dirty money enters the system.
So it's not Tornado Cash. It's not like,
It's inspired by Tornado Cash, but Tornado Cash obviously has a lot of its issues. And I think Tornado Cash is an amazing idea. It's an amazing system. We want to utilize Tornado Cash in that sense, inspired by them. But of course, we are not keen on touching anything that's dirty or helping anyone, launder money in any way, which is why Portalgate came to be.
I think it's really good. We're seeing more of these, and a lot of them are built on zero-knowledge proofs. We'll be doing a series on what, an explainer on what zero-knowledge proofs are, because I feel like it's important. It's based on math, so you can trust it. I'm a statistician. I'm not great at my math. I remember a lot of formulas, and I plug them into the machine, and it does what it does. So I wouldn't call myself a mathematician, but from the mathematicians that I do work with, Arturo, aka Numbers, on Twitter, we're working with this kind of stuff. So we're big believers in zero-knowledge proofs and how that unlocks. And even Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, he spoke about this need for zero-knowledge proofs to actually help us go more mainstream. So it's interesting to see the different applications and stuff there. Being an investor in this space, what would you say? I mean, you guys are doing it from a different lens, one would say, compared to, say, the retail person or anyone that is just looking to put a bit of extra money into a protocol, a project that they're interested in, even a blockchain. But what are the kind of things that you look out for in projects? What stands out for you that makes it as something that's interesting to look at? Can you give us a glimpse into what's the Greythorn way?
Yeah, so the Greythorn way from the very onset is at least the mandate is that we only invest in projects. Testing. We only invest in projects that we think have real value. I know that's very cliche and sounds very vague, But what we are interested here is particularly in DeFi. So a lot of the fee generating protocols are what we are interested in. For example, just a bit of a glimpse of the fund. We are a liquid fund. We do not invest in anything that is seed. We do not participate in Series A, Series B, public sales, anything like that. What we do is that we look at projects that we think have a lot of potential. A very good example is early on last year, and that is kudos to our research team, but we found GMX early in about June, July. We actually published a report on GMX in August. That's before their Binance listing in October. These are the kind of things that we look at. We are big fans of Quenta as well. We are very active on Arbitrum, Optimism. We do a lot of yield farming. But just generally, we believe that there is a whole system, and it's very small now, which is decentralized finance. And there are so many, potential, so much things that we can do, and that's where our focus is on. Really just anything that has to generate fees, has to have a real case for blockchain, and we think that will be adopted by mass public at some point.
I think that's a really good point because when people ask me what's the best kind of tokenomics, these guys are doing this, it's is it generating fees? The easiest and the best tokenomics is something that is useful, people are using every day or very regularly, and they're making money off generating fees, funnily enough, a real world business. So very interesting there. Now, research-wise, we've got your page up here. So is that in the research section? Would people find that?
That's right. We do share a little bit of the kind of research that we do. We produce a monthly newsletter. I can safely say at this point we have never been paid or asked to show any of the research, but it's really what we genuinely look at, and a lot of the research pieces that we write is directly just our internal documents, the stuff that we're looking at. We go through about 3 to 5 projects a week. At the end, maybe one or maybe even none get selected. But we do share some of the things that we are looking at. It's free, of course. So if you want to check it out, please do. Yeah.
And speaking of the website, for people to check this out, because I haven't got it up there. I mean, I've got the website there, but what's the address?
It's greythorn.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, Ryan, thank you so much, and thank you for hosting us here. We're going to get to the next interview, but people, if you want to speak to Ryan and the team, stick around. There's networking after this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on stage, Jess. And Andrew, or just Jess? All right, let's go. And now, because I've done that thing with the phone, I'm going to borrow your phone.
So this is not standard practice. Touch anything on there and I'll take you down later.
Definitely.
It might auto-lock on you, so...
Okay, I'll just keep on moving it from back and forth. So we've got Ryan and Jess. Let me get your website up and just get that ready so I can make sure the phone doesn't lock on me. But
Sorry.
From CoinTree, so thank you very much for joining us. Hands up here if you know the guys at CoinTree already.
We won't be offended if you don't.
And that just represents a massive opportunity here for you guys to get to know. So amazing. So let's talk about foundations, right? Getting started. Now, you guys were founded in 2013. It was a time when cryptocurrencies were still quite new, very, very new concept to many. Even like myself, I came in 2021, so I'm really late. What inspired you guys to join this crypto exchange back in 2017 when you did, and how has the landscape changed since then?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And thanks for having us as well. I guess just quickly, for those of you who don't know me, I'm CEO of CoinTree. It was a crazy step. So for me, I came from self-managed super corporate compliance, so the accounting world, traditional finance, and quite coincidentally, an opportunity came up for me to work with the founder, and he was like, hey, I need to scale up this business. And I'm like, cool, what is a Bitcoin and how does this work? And so it's been an absolute rabbit warren of just digging into learning so much about what is actually incredible technology. And I guess back then, those meetups were significantly smaller. There might have been 6 or 10 of us in a room, all just bundling around, being the joys on Bitcoin and how cool it might be. But the biggest thing for me is that it was just so fresh back in 2017, and we now are having conversations with regulators. We've got all these people in this room today. We're having huge events like you showed earlier today. So to see the industry grow substantially and then to be at a DeFi meetup, this isn't crypto, right? This is all about DeFi as well. It just shows that there is so much more potential. We've seen the technology grow and scale, and a business like us, we started off you could only buy Bitcoin through us. It was a really basic, dinky little platform, and I cringe if the branding ever got found again. Now we sell over 240 assets. We sell digital bullion gold. We onboard all different types of customers. So I just think it's grown significantly. It still has way to go, to be honest. But I guess that's just my 2 cents worth, and from starting all the way back then. Andrew, obviously you joined us last year, but you are deep in crypto. You got need to.
Yeah, I can't. No, I don't need that.
Actually, if we could, just because for the recording. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I came from the other direction where I'd been sort of working in software and technology for about 15 years, but started getting into crypto, got sort of MetaMask installed, maybe early 2020-ish, played around a little bit, got that first kind of Uniswap airdrop, and from there just escalated. So I found myself sort of before work and everything, just on-chain, messing around, rugging myself mainly, and then just sort of thought one day, why don't I just work in crypto? And turned out, that's a thing. And I guess about a year ago, an opportunity came up. I was looking for work at the time, and here we are. And it's been, working for an exchange. It's fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. And we met you guys at, I think it was during Blockchain Week, and have, been meaning to get you guys on. So thank you very much for coming. Let's talk about a harder question, the big D word, debanking. With the recent debanking trend affecting crypto exchanges, how has CoinTree navigated these challenges, and what strategies have you implemented to ensure seamless transactions for your users and helping them out?
Yeah, the big D word. I mean, if we just quickly take a step back, I don't know how familiar everyone is with exchanges, but back in the day of trying to even hold a bank account, there were days where we would hold a bank account for 2 days. And it would get shut down. So that was the real true beginning of being debanked. And then now it's been really interesting because, there's been debanking of exchanges, which obviously we're aware of. It's been made pretty public. And then the banks have even extended from that, though. They're now trying to control the amount that you can trade with particular, with exchanges and with a particular bank as well. So it's certainly going, I guess, extremely intense, and it's this huge slap-down approach on crypto. So for businesses like ours, and I guess just for clarity, we are a centralised exchange, for those of you who don't know us, we are trying to ensure that, first of all, communicating with customers really is the biggest thing. We're actually trying to keep them abreast of the news and what's happening within Australia. And then secondly, we are just trying to ensure that we are always putting in new types of measures in place and new types of payment methods, which we're currently working on in the background, because it certainly isn't the end of challenges with banks. And there are quite a few really friendly service providers and payment service providers which we do work with. This is not liking me. So we're just continually trying to evolve that and trying to give other options to our customers. You want to add?
It's basically, it's the same with any sort of technology business. It's all about data, understanding what's going on, what the latest trends are, communicating with our payment partners as well. Because the one thing about it is, I guess the whole sort of debanking thing and the risks around it are, just knowing what's going on in terms of what are the trends with fraud, what are the things that are, not going down well with banks, and how can we kind of combat them, and how can we sort of be agile about sort of keeping up with it when they change. So, it's, I guess that's it.
It's definitely a challenging kind of time, but I do feel like we'll get through this, and sharing the message, talking about it at events like this, talking about it online, talking about it within the networks is, and even outside of that, because this is not something I think a single place solves. So, anyone else that is facing this and wants to talk about it, you've got a community here behind you. But let's go on to something about, we were speaking before with Greythorn, like mainstream adoption. We've seen companies like PayPal come into the space and others, and they're coming in and they're creating their own stablecoin, PayPal USD. If you haven't seen it, if you want to keep up with the news, there's some great newsletter writers in the audience here. One that's going to come up on stage later, and we've got our own newsletter as well. We feature your stuff actually. So there's some really interesting things going on there with mainstream. But how do you guys see the competitive landscape, for exchanges like CoinTree, given what's going on the outside, MasterCard, Visa, PayPal? Do you view this as an opportunity or a threat?
Yeah, I think firstly it's inevitable, right? As basically the pie grows and the industry kind of grows and matures, it's inevitable that large sort of TradFi and fintech players are going to get involved. So it's not really a surprise to us at all. And it's also, I think, the other thing to consider is that it's an interesting position to be in, because the pie's growing, but we're very sort of aware of the competitive challenges as well. So, and the other piece is not just sort of TradFi and fintech players, but it's also just the technology side of sort of Web3. Wallets are getting better. Those age-old custody problems that, I think plague probably 90% of people trying to get into crypto, they're all getting solved over time, right? So there's multiple angles where I guess from a traditional retail exchange where competitive threats come in, but also the pie's growing and the use case is growing. So when it comes to stablecoins, anything that pushes a key use case of crypto like stablecoins, and pushes it forward to more people is positive for everyone. But at the same time, I think there's still plenty of areas for smaller, more agile players to kind of innovate where larger players can't.
Very interesting. And given where you guys are as an exchange, you see some interesting things that many others don't. And so let's talk about some trends and patterns. Given that we are in a bear market, arguably, the trading volumes and the other metrics, like I'm a data analyst by background and stuff, so I like the pretty charts. But have you noticed any particularly glaring or interesting kind of shifts in trading patterns? And how are you guys adopting to these market conditions?
I'll start it. All right. So I think it's back to basics. So a lot of sort of user behaviour. There's not as much punting on smaller, more, shall we say, volatile tokens, right? Don't get me wrong, there still is, but it's much more back to kind of, BTC, ETH, USDT is the lion's share of where the volume's kind of gone back to. They always were, but it's just more so. Also self-custody, like the majority of our customers self-custody, and that trend has increased, which is great. Like from, as running an exchange, we want to see that. So, it's really just back to basics, and those are kind of positive things in terms of user trends. In terms of volumes, Jess.
Hand to me. I guess it's not the first bear market we've gone through. And so I'd say the 2018 one was pretty big crunch, and that was when alts started popping out as well, right? And so I'm certainly familiar with, I call it the internal roller coaster of volatility, and try running a business on that. You don't sleep, guys. But anyway, volumes move with the market, but it's interesting because we find retail customers particularly still act when there's volatility. And as a business like ours, obviously, like most of these exchanges and businesses within Australia, there's obviously a small trading fee. And so we notice in those times of volatility, volumes actually go up. It's actually times like now where, I don't know, to say the word, people are kind of a bit, not bored, but like there's not much going on, right? And so I think it's been interesting to see it's sort of just been quite sort of stable trading volume-wise. But yes, there's certainly lots of dips and ups and downs and things like that, but you learn to navigate them.
It's interesting, people say that, crypto's so volatile. Well, any market's volatile if you actually compress the time series. Things that would normally take 7, 14, 20 years to happen in traditional markets happen in a year in crypto. So in a way, we are speed running, as the guys at Bankless talk about, speed running innovation, speed running finance. The education side is really interesting as well. And, seeing more people become aware. I mean, you guys are a testament going from like 6 or 10 or whatever it was to what we see now for an event like this. How do you guys, you've got to focus on education. I've seen the education materials on the website here, so please check it out. Education for the digital economy and giving access to all. Can you guys share some of the resources that you've got and the tools that you've developed to help users grow in their knowledge about crypto and trading?
Yeah, so we actually did a lot of content work about 2 years to 18 months ago with an incredible team who helped us build out that learning hub and lots of education articles. And they were foundation articles and pieces to really help people understand just the basis of what crypto and blockchain was, which perhaps this audience might be sort of a little bit basic in that sense. But then we did start to evolve them quite regularly on just trying to keep up to date with new types of tech. We've been probably a little quieter in the last sort of 6 to 8 months on that lens on new content. However, what we've now tried to do is have a lot more customer direct content on scams and frauds been the biggest one lately. I'm sure a lot of people in this room would probably have seen lots of news about, all the types of scams that are taking place across Australia. So we've actually been doing lots of videos and pieces to help some of our customers, because we have lots of old customers as well who maybe aren't as familiar with tech as we are. So we're trying to do pieces that are a lot more targeted to our customers to try and help them learn and grow. We're also really connected, I guess, with that self-managed super space too. So we're actually working on some pieces at the moment on that front as well. I don't know who has SMSFs and who invests in crypto, but that's something that we do work with as well. So we're trying to stay on that front. And then we actually have a foundation shareholder in our business called Indicia Labs, and they actually do all patent AI data analytics. So if anyone's a CoinTree customer, you'll be actually getting those Indicia insights in our weekly newsletters, which are actually pretty cool, and they actually give quite a global update on the scene as well. So yeah, that's mine. Anything else? Yeah.
I think it's pretty good that you've got older customers because according to all the other news that I've seen, they're the ones with all the wealth. So, not us younger ones, millennials, etc. I still count myself as a millennial. But you spoke about cyber and stuff there and protection. Let's talk about security. You mentioned the CoinTree in talks that we've had before, that you guys have bank level encryption. Yep. And that's really interesting. It's a catchy term. What does it mean? But could you elaborate more on the measures that you guys have actually implemented to ensure the safety of your customers' assets and how you keep up with the ever-changing face of cybersecurity in the world we're in now?
Yeah, so this is always a tricky one to answer because I can't give away all of our trade secrets, otherwise I'd open us up to some security risks, wouldn't I? So, but yeah, just to I guess speak back to that, we obviously have that bank level encryption on obviously our platform, which is obviously one of those measures we put in place. We are, like any business, constantly getting people trying to obviously, come to the platform, right? There's always constant I guess we have like a whole peripheral view where we can see where people are trying to attempt to get in on any point in time, right? And that happens to every exchange and every type of tech platform, right? It's quite interesting watching them badger onto the walls actually to try and find a vulnerability. But when we speak to custody and security, so for CoinTree, obviously, like a lot of businesses, we've obviously got multi-factor authentication. We also have YubiKey connectivity as well, for those of you who are techie and like using those too. We have all sorts of, internal processes as well. So again, I can't speak to them in too much detail, but the way we run things internally, you can only imagine the security. We use multiple, levels of the custodian lens. So we use a third-party custodian, which is blocked with 3 different private key access, which is segregated accordingly. Lots of you would know, I'm sure, some of the main custodians. But then we also obviously have an extremely secure cold wallet backup, which is then very, securely accessed by certain personnel and processes. So it's quite extensive. We've certainly tested out things on the platform over the time, regular security testing, things like that as well. Have I missed anything? No?
I think you covered most of it.
Okay.
Okay, and finally, where do you guys see the future heading? The space, you guys are known for your resilience because you've been around since 2013, but like crystal ball time, where do you kind of see the space heading? Whether it's over the next 12 months to the end of the year, 5 years, whatever you want to.
Yeah. So talking about the medium term with retail exchanges first, kind of our view is that over the last sort of, call it 2 to 3 years, I think a lot of what exchanges were doing was focusing too broad and kind of almost jumped the shark in some ways at the expense of the core things that an exchange should do. So for example, we're talking about things like centralized NFT platforms, obscure kind of earn products and that sort of thing, which are pretty much poor replications of some of the innovations that's happening on chain. So I think for exchanges, what it means to be exchange, especially after FTX and many other recent events like Celsius, I think it's back to basics again. So it's refocusing on the core things it is to be an exchange, which is people being able to on and off ramp and do what they need to do with their funds while having the right supporting information to do that. So I think there's still a lot of room in Australia and internationally for an exchange to really sort of get that balance of features, simplicity, and data to support that, and trust as well. So we see the custodian side changing quite a bit as well. So we mentioned before, most of our customers at the moment actually self-custody, but there is a large amount of customers who might not be in the industry right now, and new customer types that we're sort of talking to that sort of thinking about it but not quite in, where self-custody might, as easy as it gets with technology changes, might not be the best option for them. So we do see sort of the whole custody side changing, and I think that kind of separation of a traditional broker exchange and custody becoming a thing and being on the forefront of that. So that's the kind of medium term with just, I think, sort of retail and just exchanges in general. But beyond that, I think it's just as the sort of use cases and adoptions for crypto grow, so does the opportunity as well. So just having worked in technology for a number of years, you can see that you started off with one plan, you had a rough sort of vision where you're going, but a bunch of things that happened along the way kind of changed that, but also increased the opportunities. And we know with things like, I think, in the hopefully not too distant future, things like decentralized IDs coming online, and just, I think sort of more ownership on chain and a bunch of these other sort of spoken about use cases. Therefore, anyone who's got an established business, technology platform, a trusted sort of regulated front is going to have a lot of opportunity to sort of curate the jungle as it is, as probably one way to describe it, where bringing the best kind of innovation to customers in a trusted way without trying to sort of replicate it in a centralized way. Basically just bringing a menu of the best things that customers can access, whoever those customers might be.
And I just have my 2 cents worth on the reg and banking side as well. And I would love a crystal ball. So if anyone does find one of those, and that many people ask me all the time, what should I invest in? And I'm like, do not ask me that. I am never giving you an answer. But, I think the biggest thing for Australia over the next couple of years will actually be seeing some sort of regulation come through, something we're trying to work quite closely with obviously lots of the representative groups within Australia and the government and the banks as well, because, it's something that does need to, it's going to take place, let's be honest, and it's something that I think will certainly help businesses be able to operate effectively as well. I don't know how much everyone knows about, obviously, if you want to know more about the inner workings of an exchange, chat to us later, but it is so challenging having to make your own decisions on things that are, compliance, AML, like all sorts of things. And as much as we all report to AUSTRAC and the ATO and everything else, there's some guidelines, but there still isn't quite enough. And so, from that lens, I think that will it might not appeal to everyone that are the native crypto people about why crypto was, I guess, created in the first place. But I think for that mainstream adoption, there needs to be greater confidence that there is some sort of regulation and something that helps, I guess, people understand that it's maybe not as scary and as risky as they think. And I really think that people need to understand what they're doing before they trade, because, as we all know, it's instant. It's on the blockchain. You can't change it. If you withdraw it or you send it somewhere and you don't know where it's going, it's done. You can't get it back. Well, maybe you can, but most cases you can't get it back. And so, I think that that's something that's really important. And I also think that the likes of the stable coins as well is really going to help too, because I think people need to be able to understand. They don't understand crypto, so a digital, being able to have a digital version of an Australian dollar is something that they're actually starting to conceptualise. They're understanding that more, and so it's like USDT is so popular, like it's one of our most popular assets, and so I think that's all a step in the way in the right direction. But let's see when that next bull run is, because that'd be nice if it was soon.
Well, stick around, and definitely there's going to be people here that will want to chat with you guys a little bit more. But for now, thank you, Jess and Andrew from CoinTree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What we're going to get to next, folks, is 5 minutes from, speaking of stablecoins, yes, your phone. Thank you very much for that. From Erez from Stables, and we're going to have Anthony Sassano after that doing an AMA. So, Erez, up on stage. You want to grab that mic? All right, let me... here we go. There's your... Look, it's him.
Are we sitting down?
Oh,
wow.
Can you give us that look, though? Like, I don't know where you're... No?
I'll give it briefly, yeah.
Okay.
That was a younger Erez.
Okay, a younger Erez. Well, this is your 5 minutes of fame. There's one question I've got for you, because hands up here who knows what Stables is. Okay, there's a few more to educate, so please tell the lovely audience more about Stables. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay, all right. So we're not getting the silver glove. but that's okay. So first of all, good evening. Lovely to be here in Melbourne. Also really appreciate that a few people know us, which is cool. I mean, firstly, Greythorn and Ryan and the team, thank you for having us. Appreciate that. We're also one of the sponsors of Aus DeFi, so that's why it keeps me on a tight leash for 5 minutes, because he's heard my spiel before. You know, actually over the last couple of weeks, we've been in Brisbane together, Mark and I. We found actually we have the same birthday, which is very interesting.
August 29th, baby.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks coming. But look, it's exciting to share what we've built with Stables. So we're a team, when you speak of kind of mainstream adoption of crypto and bringing it to the masses, I mean, and I've got one of our other founders here, Daniel, in the room as well. We kind of dreamt a couple years ago, when we started about a little over 2 years ago, to build a digital wallet similar to PayPal, similar to, you know, someone mentioned Lemon Cash tonight, or Beamer, many other, you know, kind of regular representations of a Web2 business, but all built from the ground up with stablecoins. So it's a digital wallet powered by stablecoins from the outset. And that was very exciting at the time. You know, at the time there was a big bull run, everyone was using crypto in all these different ways, but what we kind of imagined is, can we really make this very simple and beautiful? And we're fortunate that our team actually, I don't know how many people in the audience today have used Pocketbook before, or you have, okay, there you go, a couple people, and Zip Money as well, the mobile application. So our team, our core CTO, our CPO, you know, we have a team of 18 in Sydney, but actually we're responsible for building those applications from the ground up. Our first hire, aside from the founders, is a chief risk officer and general counsel. He ran one of the first neobanks in Australia that they got the first authorized deposit-taking institution license. So we kind of built this pretty, you know, what I call a world-class team that have built some of the most heavily adopted fintech apps in Asia Pac over the last, let's say, 5 years. And so we've been pretty busy building at Stables, and you know, today you can use the app and download it from the mobile app store on iOS and from Android on Google. And what we do, really simply, is we do two things really cool. One is, you know, speaking of regular faces and mainstream adoption, we actually partner with MasterCard to deliver the first card in Asia Pac where you can spend directly from your digital asset balance, not from a fiat balance, from your stablecoin balance.
I used it today. So these pizzas, the drinks, I use my Stables card on the phone, brought it up on the website. It's got the card number there, which I'm not going to give away. I'll give other stuff away. But I used it instantaneously. I see it deducted, done. Woolies and Domino's. You're welcome.
Yeah, so it's incredible that when you build something and it's a labor of love and the simplicity of the product, you actually have a lot of people, like we have a lot of people all across Australia and globally as well, like organically using the product. And there's a real world use case.
Was that another sign up? You just got a notification, sign up?
It's the bell we ring.
Okay.
No, I'm joking, it's not. But yeah, so it's got a simple real world use case. Number one, we've got a card in the wallet. So that's like your functional every day. Yesterday we released our Apple Pay card. So that's quite exciting. Google Pay's coming. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So
any other Google Pixel phone users here, or is it just me? Okay, good.
It's a thing.
We're not alone. Good.
I can tell you the story afterwards. It's out of our control, but it's coming. Funnily enough, the Google team was ahead of the Android team was ahead of the iOS team, and then for some reason I've been unblocked faster. But so we have people every day spending. That's very cool. On goods and services, also kind of some businesses buying business expenses. Like if you're a Web3 business or a Web3 employee of a Web3 company, we have a lot of people also getting paid in Stables directly into the app, and then you can convert it back to your bank account, or or spend it effectively cheaper than you typically would off ramping it, which is pretty powerful. So That's the core. And then, sorry, the second thing we do that's very cool, and in my 5-minute time limit, I know you've warned
5
me.
minutes. It's 5 minutes in crypto, whatever that means.
You've warned me before, but no. So the second thing that's very cool, actually, and I am quite confident that it is almost unique, but it's like very rarely you're going to see this. Is since we're a digital wallet built from stablecoins from the outset, actually what we do is we don't commingle your funds. So Erez's wallet, Mark's wallet, Daniel's wallet, any number of other people's wallet, now it could be 1 million people, let's say, all in segregated wallets that you can verify on chain. Separate from our company funds, separate from our company float and balance sheet. So you can actually see when you're spending, it's out of your wallet. It's not out of a pooled wallet or anything else. So that offers our users, and what they take kind of solace in to a degree is that, they can verify on chain that their money's there at any given point. It's not commingled, it's not rehypothecated, it's a transparent business built with regulation first in mind from the team up, not just from the laws. And from a regulatory point of view, it's not like we only do one or two things very well. We're not holding volatile assets, we're not trading volatile assets. So it sits in a very boring end of the realm of spectrum of regulation in cryptos.
But boring is good.
Yeah, so we launched a card this week. That's really exciting. The Google card's coming, and we're going to do a bigger kind of announcement with MasterCard. So that's going to be cool. And it's a pleasure to be here as part of the community. And I welcome anyone to talk about the journey of building or getting traction in bear markets is always fun. So yeah.
And thank you for your 5-ish minutes. Erez from Zables. Anthony, do you want to come up? I'm just going to flick the slides over, and welcome to everyone who's just joined. Hang on a second. Camera's going. We're good. All right, mate. So this is going to be audience interaction. First of all, hands up who watches the Daily Gwei. Needs more. What's going on? That's okay. There's a very online community that watches it. I've seen the numbers.
Yeah.
They're up there.
It's okay.
We're
They're missing out on the alpha if they're not watching it.
Absolutely.
So it's
and
not my fault.
Guys, daily, every day, mostly.
Every weekday, yeah.
Every week, yes. Yeah, so there you go. So this is going to be a real audience interaction thing, but just to give you a sense of who the audience is, can we get a show of hands? Let's get some categories going. Hands up here who is a Web3 founder, who would categorize yourself as a founder in the space. Okay, and then hands up if you're working for a startup or a business in the Web3 space. It's a few more, so that's great. And hands up if you're not working technically in the space, but this is just something on the side that you've been very interested in. You're buying, you're researching this space, but you actually work not in Web3, in Web2. Okay, there's a few more. And everyone else, I didn't really do the count, so, And I was making the categories up as I go. So
Everyone else is a Fed.
Yeah, no, that's it. And welcome to everyone else from the government. Thank you very much. But no, so I'll kickstart the AMA, and then we're going to go to the audience. I'll do the running around. I haven't got my cardio in because it was too cold today, actually, which is a really good reason to actually get your cardio in. Anyway, left brain thinking. Anthony, welcome. Thank you for taking the time. What made you come into this space? What brought you into it? Anthony and I, we've got a common friend, another Anthony, that used to work at Telstra with you back in the day. But what made you go from being in that world to getting into the Web3 space?
Yeah, I mean, my journey is kind of, I guess, relatively unique. Technically, I've been in crypto since 2013 with Bitcoin, but I think when I got into it back then, there was just really Bitcoin and some offshoots, right? For anyone who was around back then, like Litecoin, Peercoin, Namecoin, they were all very early experiments that didn't really go anywhere. And I think once the prices stopped going up in 2014, I kind of lost interest because I wasn't in it for the tech. I was in it to make some money, right? So, and Ethereum obviously only just came onto the scene around early 2014 in terms of the white paper being published, things like that. So I missed all that. One of my greatest regrets in life is missing early Ethereum because I then came back into crypto in early 2017, and that's when I discovered Ethereum. And I'm like, okay, well, I understand Bitcoin. I understand there's a coin, and I'm like, okay, there's an ETH coin. This is another thing. And then I dived a little bit deeper and realized that Ethereum wasn't just a fork of Bitcoin. It was something completely new, completely different. You could do all these things on Ethereum that you couldn't do on Bitcoin. And I remember exactly what caught my attention the most was Ethereum moving to proof of stake, because that, to me, was distinctly different to what Bitcoin was doing. Not just being able to build on it, of course, but very different to proof of work. And there had been proof of stake attempts, like I mentioned Peercoin, and I think a couple other ones along the way, but they weren't really successful. And obviously Ethereum took a lot longer to get to proof of stake than anyone thought. It was talked about in 2017 as if it was coming that year. Did not come in 2017. But I think what really just kept me in like when the prices started going down again in 2018, was the fact that I was in it for the tech this time, right? Like there were all these things being built. I was talking to really interesting people about things. It wasn't just the hardcore libertarian, screw the government crowd, which I never really vibed with, to be honest. It was more the, what can we build to make the world a better place? Not the thinking of the world's going to shit, so let's buy Bitcoin to protect ourselves. Like that just never vibed with me. And I understand why it vibes with some people, but I'm not a doomer. I prefer to be someone who has hope for the future. And that's what Ethereum represented for me. Hope to build better things, better, especially financial products, more open for people around the world and to get them, I guess, like not banked, right? But essentially to go bankless, as we say, and to basically have access to financial services and plug in and get more freedom that way. But yeah, that was kind of like the high level of what kept me interested through the bear market and everything. But now I spend most of my time on trying to keep up with everything happening. There's so much happening on the layer 2 side, on the Ethereum core protocol side. The ecosystem is specifically Ethereum. I pay most attention to Ethereum. But within Ethereum itself, the ecosystem has never been stronger in terms of, I guess, the vision for the future. Like I can see what Ethereum is going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now with relative certainty. Obviously, there's going to be changes along the way, but the roadmap is kind of defined. People are aligned on what they want to build. People are aligned on the mission of scaling via layer 2s and stuff like that. And Ethereum is executing on it. That's the most important thing. It's not just a roadmap of, oh yeah, we're going to get proof of stake in 2017 and then it comes like 3 years later. No, it's we have this roadmap and we're going to execute on it in a relatively quick fashion, which at the moment is around a 6-month cadence of network upgrades, which have various different upgrades in them. But the roadmap definitely is a 10 to 15 year thing. And then beyond that, outside of the core Ethereum protocol, also how to scale this up to the world, right? So the layer 2 stuff that's happening, you might have heard of account abstraction and smart contract wallets, stuff like that on the user experience side of things. Obviously, all the interesting stuff that Coinbase is doing with Base is just, I mean, I really don't think people are seeing the forest here. They're just kind of like missing it when they look at Base and like, oh, it's centralized. It still has relatively high fees, blah, blah, blah. It's Coinbase. It's like, yeah, but the thing is that Coinbase has a crap ton of users, right? So many users that have never, ever gone on chain. They literally buy a coin during a bull market, keep it on the centralized exchange, and that's their entire crypto experience. That's not crypto to me, right? That's not what crypto should be. So Coinbase also thinks that. I think Brian Armstrong is obviously very ideologically driven. One of the few that have been around for a very long time and survived, because surviving in crypto is apparently very, very hard thing to do. Billionaires blow up all the time. Who knew it was so easy to blow up? But he's been around for a while, and then they've got this whole initiative internally to push this out, and it's all about getting people on chain. And I think that alone is going to push the space forward more than anything we've seen, because there's this kind of blog post that was put out by Union Square Ventures called The Myth of the Infrastructure Phase, where people build infrastructure without there being users for it. So it's like building ghost cities. No one's there because there wasn't demand for this. You just built this city and you expected people to come there, but why would they come there, right? So it's all about getting people on chain and then having those growing pains and then incentivizing people to actually build things to fix that. And that's why we've seen a lot of the layer 2s get funding and get very popular, is because we have that problem where the fees on layer 1 Ethereum are really high. We know that layer 1 Ethereum is not being scaled for, I guess, the world. It's being scaled for layer 2s. That's the kind of roll-up centric roadmap, as we call it. And without high fees on layer 1, layer 2 would have never happened. No one was complaining about scaling when layer 1 fees were low. No one was saying we need layer 2s, we need to scale, right? So there's this myth that you need to create the scale before you have the users, and the users will just come. And we can see that very clearly in crypto with all these other layer 1s that are ghost towns, basically, right? They may have blips of usage here and there during bull markets, because obviously there's so much money sloshing around. But generally, over the longer term, there's so much capacity there. But you have to ask, why is no one using this chain where the fees are basically less than a cent, and Ethereum still does, in a bear market, $5 to $10 million of revenue a day. So it does fee revenue a day, which most of it gets burnt if everyone is familiar with EIP 1559. So that altogether encompasses kind of what I'm paying most attention to. And I think it's also what confuses a lot of people, because Ethereum's roadmap has evolved a lot over the years, so much actually. Like, it's crazy thinking back to 2017 when I first looked at it. There was sharding. Now sharding is like data sharding. It's kind of sharding, but it's something else. And then we had the proof of stake stuff, but there was a different proof of stake at the time, and that iterated and that evolved so much. But the analogy I like to use, and I'll stop here because I know I'm rambling. The analogy I like to use is that imagine if you had access to Apple's R&D department, and you could see every single iteration they go through as they build a product. Imagine if you had access to that during the development of the iPhone. It would look really bad. It would look messy. It would look like they were making decisions that made no sense. It would look like they were abandoning work that they spent years on, and you might think they're crazy for abandoning it because they believe this path is better. So that's what the Ethereum roadmap kind of is, and the core roadmap is. It's just open R&D. Everyone can see what's going on, and I think that's why it gets so heavily criticized, because people make jokes of it. They're like, oh, you had this whole proof of stake thing, and then you just abandoned that and went to something else. It's like, yeah, we did, because we delivered that something else, and now it's live and it works, right? So it's just the openness that I think causes confusion for people, because if it just got delivered and no one saw how the sausage was made, so to speak, it would have been a lot cleaner. But the magic is that it's all open to me.
You had me at hello first. And secondly, Jess, you were asking about a crystal ball. I think there's part of the crystal ball. And for folks that didn't know, on the website there, the Daily Gwei, definitely worth checking that out if you just had a little sneak preview right there. But let's open up to the audience who's got questions. Nissan, right up the front, and the gentleman right next to you. Here we go.
So it's two parts. One, can you explain account abstraction for the normal man? And two, how do you become part of the community that helps build Ethereum? If you're now, like your tech or your business, you're interested, but you just don't know where to start, and you think it's a bro club, and you just want to be part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so account abstraction, I'll have to step back and just describe the two types of accounts, as we call them in Ethereum. So there is an EOA, or an externally owned account. This is a normal Ethereum wallet that you have, when you obviously have a MetaMask and it generates you a wallet, that's an EOA, as we refer to them. Then there is a kind of smart contract. That's the other type of account. So all account abstraction is, so there's account abstraction, and then there's like smart contract wallets and smart wallets. There's different names for these things, but they all kind of fall under the same umbrella. What they're trying to do is essentially make it so that you can have a smart contract as your wallet, because that enables a lot of really cool on-chain things that you can do. One of those is, for example, you could put on limits or spending limits on your account, and you can do like security practices, like having if you are familiar with something called the Safe app, it's a multi-sig, and this is a smart contract wallet where essentially you can have pretty much as many signers as you want on that, and then you need to have those signers. So say it's like a 3 or 5 multi-sig, you have to have 3 people sign for a transaction to be processed. You can't do any of that with an externally owned account, because it's like a dumb account basically. It's essentially just there. You send assets to it. You can hold obviously all the assets you want in it, but it doesn't give you that natively on the actual on chain. You can build stuff on top of it, and you can have things like you build an app that has the controls in the app. But the whole point of a smart contract wallet is the controls are in the smart contract itself. So you can access those controls from any interface. It's just open. It's like an open API for anyone to kind of access and play around with. So that's why everyone is so excited about it. But the issue is getting a standard around it so that people can work off a standard rather than creating their own walled gardens. Because obviously there isn't a profit opportunity here where you can build your own smart contract wallet and then funnel people into it and then potentially take fees or some other thing. And people are trying right now, and they've been pretty successful so far. There are a few things like there's a team called Wallet Connect. They've been working on things. I mentioned Safe. They actually just published a white paper yesterday of a smart contract wallet design that they want people to adopt. So people are working on those sorts of things in order to get adoption there. But in my mind, without that, there's no mass adoption, because it not only enables those things I talked about, but it enables things like abstracting away gas fees natively. So essentially, Visa did this recently. They have something called a Paymaster. It's a service that exists to basically allow anyone to pay for gas fees in any token that they want. It still ultimately will get paid in ETH if it's on layer 1 or layer 2, because layer 2 settle down to ETH, and you have to pay ETH on layer 1. You can't get around that. But for the user, it's pay in stablecoins, pay in another token. I suspect most people will just pay in stablecoins or ETH because they're the most liquid. It's what everyone has, right? I mean, we heard from CoinTree that most people are in ETH, BTC, and USDT. So just naturally like that. But how awesome would it be that you get 1,000 USDC into your account, right? Or you get paid or something. And then you don't have to have ETH in there to pay a fee to move it around. You can just use your USDC to do that. So it kind of, it opens up that thing where it removes that friction for the user. So those are just like a sneak peek of the account abstraction stuff and smart contract wallets. In terms of getting involved with the ecosystem, there are so many different ways. It's hard to kind of pinpoint one, but I think the good place to start is, what are you interested in most? Like, what part are you interested in? Community stuff, marketing, developing, AI, all that sorts of stuff, right? And our ZK proofs, layer 2s, staking, whatever it is, there is a community for you in that. Like for staking, you go to something like ETH Staker, which is a group. They've got a Reddit, they've got a Discord, incredibly helpful, really great guys. I know a few of them, and they will help you with basically anything got to do with staking. There's Rockerpool as well, which is a staking product that's actually based out of Sydney. So they're homegrown, and that's the stuff that you would do for staking. If it's layer 2s, there's L2 Beats, which is a website that tracks all the different layer 2s and educates about them. They've got a Discord as well. Then you can join the Discords of the various different layer 2 teams. So it really does just depend what section you want to get into. And I would say you just go into the Discord. That's how you get started a lot in crypto, because Discord is, and crypto Twitter, of course, but if you want to have better conversations, you go to Discord. Crypto Twitter is not a platform for good conversations. I know that from experience. And then that way you quickly make connections. You can be anonymous, pseudonymous, completely doxed. It doesn't matter. I have friends that I've talked to for years that I have no idea who they are, right? I have no idea who they are. They've got an anime profile picture, and that's who they are to me. So I think that it's just all about defining what you're most interested in and then getting involved with those communities in the Discord or on Twitter and things like that. Awesome.
Keen to get your thoughts on how you perceive off-chain computation on L2s like ZK Sync.
Mm-hmm. So with the magic of, I guess, like ZK proofs, I mean, one of the magic looking things they can do is that they can prove the off-chain computation, right? Where essentially you can do some off-chain computation, and then you can prove on-chain with ZK proofs that it actually happened the way you basically say it does, without having to reveal how you did it. And that's basically how zero-knowledge proofs work. Zero-knowledge roll-ups work, or validity proof roll-ups work from a high level there. I think that the problem right now is cost, of course. There are very high costs in terms of like prover costs, they call them, and of like Polygon and Scroll. You may have heard of these teams before, Starkware, things like that. They're working on bringing that cost down, because if the cost is too high, and the way they measure the cost is not only the cost of running it off chain, but also the cost of putting it on chain. Because if it costs too much to put on chain, it's not economical. But this is why it's a really cool. This is actually a really cool property of ZK rollups, where the more transactions that happen, the cheaper it gets for everyone, because you amortize the costs over many transactions. So essentially, if it costs you like $1,000 to put a proof on chain, just as an example, and then you only have one user, I mean, that user's fee, in theory, I mean, not in practice, would be $1,000. If you have 1,000 users, the fee would be $1 each, and then you keep scaling it up from there. But I mean, off-chain computation isn't just limited to scaling. You can literally, with ZK proofs, you can literally do any off-chain computation that you want, and then prove to the world that that you did it correctly, and that you didn't try any funny business with it or anything like that. So yeah, I'm very bullish on it, but still early days. There are a few teams to pay attention to. Risk Zero is one of them. Risk as in R-I-S-C, not K. You might get confused trying to Google that. There's that, and then as I said, like Polygon, Scroll, all these ZK teams working on different things. There's a few other ones. I mean, I can rattle off name. Nocturne, they're doing privacy stuff. Aztec's doing privacy stuff. ZK became a buzzword very, very quickly, from what I've noticed. But the cool thing about the ZK stuff is that I think that even though it's a buzzword, even though there's a lot of money going into it, that maybe goes nowhere, it's like anything when it comes to innovation. It'll just make everyone better. And I think, yeah, if you pay attention to those teams, you'll find the other ones and stuff like that. Yeah. Awesome.
Hey man, how you doing?
Hey.
I'm Liam.
Hey.
I just wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier about Brian Armstrong on Coinbase and then kind of pushing the ecosystem forward. I have a slightly different perspective. I actually think the engine at Coinbase now is a guy called Paul Gruhl, and I would say in this room there's probably no one who knows what it is.
Chief Legal Officer.
Yeah, exactly.
Coinbase, yeah.
And he's super transparent. Like, nearly all the paperwork that they get from the SEC and everything that they file, he publishes online. So he really kind of embraces the decentralized, like, transparency aspect. So he shows them, like, what they get from the SEC. So I just sort of wanted to hear your thoughts around kind of their legal position and how that's ongoing, and what are your sort of thoughts generally, you know, as deep or as shallow as you want to go.
Yeah, I can go pretty deep on this. This is something that I cover pretty regularly on my show. And you're right, Paul Grewal has been so transparent on Twitter, especially around all their battles with the SEC and other regulators out there. We like, as a meme that he's based. I mean, the based meme, because it's Coinbase, right? It's a play on words. But essentially, yeah, I mean, I mentioned Brian Armstrong as, I guess, obviously the figurehead and CEO of Coinbase. Everyone would know him. But as you said, Paul Grewal is not as well known. But what I really like about him is that he knows he's right when it comes to the things that the SEC is saying, because it's written in the law. If you speak to not just like lawyers, but you speak to anyone that studies the law is very clear on these things, and that's what we saw with the Ripple versus SEC case, where the judge just applied the law. There was no, interpretation of the law that wasn't written on the piece of paper. It wasn't written on, in the law. So
If you look at where the SEC is and you go back to 2018, for example, BitMEX, that did not really go the SEC's way. They got some fines, but compared to that, like, they don't seem to win that many of these.
that's not the point of the SEC. The SEC is a mob. When you pay a fine, you're paying protection money. They exist to extract money and make sure that they're taking in more than their budget is, essentially.
I would say it's a political agenda.
But that's the thing. Like, it's always a political agenda. But I mean, a mob has politics too.
Is there anyone here from the SEC?
I don't care.
No, we're
I'll
good.
say it
We're
to their
good. We're
face.
good.
I'll say it to their face. But I mean, because they run under the guise of investor protection. They protected no one from FTX. They protected no one from Terra. They protected no one from every single rug pull and scam that's happened in crypto, right? And then they come in after everything's blown up, right? After Gary Gensler, by the way, was pretty close with SBF, but they come in after everyone blows up and they say, oh, we're here to save the day. No, they're not. They're here to come and collect. They want to fine and they want to go after these easy cases. Gary Gensler in particular wants to go after cases that get headlines. You notice he only went after Kim Kardashian promoting scams, not the no-name people, because that's a headline. Coinbase, headline. Binance, headline. The thing is, he's not going to get fired unless the president changes, right? Unless the Republicans win. So yes, it's politics.
So I would counter it, right? And I would go back to like 2009, the GFC, right? A few of my friends are investment bankers and they came from like pretty good pedigree, Goldman Sachs and stuff like that. And essentially what they would do, the SEC would come in, they'd be selling some asset and they would say it's AAA. And the SEC would say, we don't think it's AAA. And they would just trot out their quant. And their quant would just be some guy with like a ridiculous IQ and 3 PhDs.
Yeah.
And he would just talk at the SEC until the SEC guy like just eyes glazed over and he was like, okay. The reason is if you're super intelligent and you want to make money, you probably go and work at Goldman Sachs, not at the SEC. So I don't think they understand crypto, even to this day. I think they're getting much better. But in the case of Kim Kardashian, they ultimately see that as a celebrity. You know, to be successful in the US, you have to have a celebrity, right? Really, you know, whatever the Rocks Tequila's called, or Ryan Reynolds, right? Once you're a celebrity, you can sell anything. So if you put Kim Kardashian on an ICO, obviously you're going to get a lot of people who don't understand what they're investing in buying. I think they still don't really understand crypto.
They don't. And I mean, I say the SEC, really my problem is with Gary Gensler, because he's the head and he makes comments that are literally just false. And a lot of these suits that they're bringing to these companies, like as I said, Ripple. I mean, the thing about the Ripple case is that I don't like Ripple either, but I like the SEC less. So I'm glad Ripple won that. But they won that based on the law, what was written in the law, that the XRP itself is not a security. The asset, that's the thing about securities laws. The asset itself is not a security. If it's an investment contract, and there's very clear guidelines about this. And Gary Gensler knows this, right? They know this. But as I said, it's a politics thing. They need to be tough on crime because no one ever lost votes being tough on crime. And then the easiest thing to do is just to come in after things have blown up, because then you look like you're doing something, right? If you come in when things are going...
They don't pay legal fees, right? Because all those guys are on salary.
Yeah, exactly.
They pay you up for 1,000 hours.
Yeah. And if you come in while things are going good, everyone, I guess, like outside of crypto, the people asking for protection or asking for consequences is going to hate you, because they're like, well, you're in here and you're disturbing us, right? You're disturbing the party. It's like to use the party analogy, you don't want the cops showing up to shut your party down. They're the bad guys. But they come the next day when everyone's just like completely wasted. Maybe someone got robbed. Someone's on the floor. Maybe you got stabbed or something. You want them there. So that's what they do. And I don't think that is the right approach at all. I think the right approach is putting in clear guidelines and regulations for things that need them. I think obviously centralized exchanges need them, centralized services need them. Anything that custodies assets really needs it. But I don't think any amount of regulation would have probably stopped Terra, for example. That was all on chain, right? Really. AFT, I mean, yeah.
They were just blatantly lying.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There was just actual kind of fraud and blatant lying going on there for sure. But the problem is that the SEC sued Coinbase, and Coinbase has tried to do everything right, right? As Paul Grewal has said numerous times on Twitter, they have all the proof of this. So if you want to be respected as an institution that purports to protect investors, you don't go after the good guys like that, right? And as I said, I think they did that because it's a nice headline. And honestly, Coinbase will fight it until their dying breath because it's their business on the line. And Gary Gensler will probably not be the head of the SEC by the time that case gets resolved, and unless a judge resolves it quickly because of the Ripple precedent. Now, we didn't have this before, so there's all this stuff going on. But yeah, once you start going down that hole, it's quite interesting to see how it really is just politics at the end of the day.
I think back.
Sorry, Lee, can we get some other?
Yeah, I could go on forever about it.
We should actually get you up on stage to do that.
Yeah,
let's
all
get
good.
to the other guys. Go ahead.
Hello, Anthony. First of all, just want to say that I'm a regular listener to a famous podcast starting with B, so I'm not going to mention the name, but I just want to say that you've done really well for the couple of episodes that I listened to, that you're really killing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really well done. So my question is really about the other layer ones. So I know you mentioned a couple of times that so your focus attention is on Ethereum, but we all know that blockchain is not just, especially layer one, is not just about Ethereum. There are a couple of other chains, and some of them allegedly solve the problem with high gas fees and transaction speed and things like that. So I just want to know your perspective. Do you see a future of those layer ones, or you see eventually they will just somehow become in a side chain or Ethereum, or eventually just no adoption at all and just disappear?
So this is a big question because there's a lot of moving parts here, and I'll try not to ramble too long because I have a lot of opinions on this. So you have to kind of define what the layer one is. So, for example, Bitcoin layer one is very different to Ethereum layer one for obvious reasons, right? You can't do what you can on Bitcoin on Ethereum on Bitcoin. But at the same time, Ethereum's layer one is very different to Cardano or a Solana or some of these other high throughput purported blockchains, right? Because these other chains are what we call monolithic chains. They're trying to do everything at the one layer. They're not interested in layer twos. They're not interested in side chains, all that sorts of stuff there. They're trying to scale that one layer, that global kind of state, to everyone, to every transaction that will ever happen. It will just happen on that one layer. Ethereum is not trying to do that at all. As part of the rollup centric roadmap, Ethereum layer one is what we call a settlement layer. It will be a layer where these layer twos settle onto. So because of that, essentially what happens is that the Ethereum layer one is being scaled for these layer twos. It becomes a B2B relationship. So Ethereum is a business that has a relationship with layer twos, which is also a business. And then layer twos are B2C, where they have business to consumer with the users. So layer twos are the user-facing layer. But these other layer ones, they want to be the settlements and user-facing layer. Now, I personally don't think that is actually possible to do, even if you're completely centralized. Because completely centralized databases today employ various different techniques in order to scale, such as sharding. Sharding centralized, doing it centralized, very easy to do. In a decentralized context, very hard to do, because in a centralized context, you don't need trustless sharding. You can just trust that you're doing it correctly. They employ things like quality of service, which are algorithms that run to detect spam. Obviously, we've all run into Cloudflare, DOS protection, things like that, right? So if you start employing those kind of techniques on layer one, you lose some of the really nice properties of a blockchain. You lose censorship resistance, because what if you filter out a transaction that is not spam, that is actually legitimate? Well, you've technically just censored that transaction, right? So you've kind of lost one of the core properties of blockchain. Sharding, as I said, the Ethereum researchers looked at sharding for a long time. It was hard, it was impossible, if not like just too messy to do in a decentralized context, and it didn't scale very well in a decentralized context. So that was kind of abandoned in favor of a different sharding approach that favors layer 2s. So when you think about that holistically, you start to see the picture of, okay, these other layer 1s are competing with Ethereum layer 2s. Because we call the layer 2s the execution environment, where all the transactions get executed and everyone does their fancy smart contract stuff, whatever. These other layer 1s are trying to be, as I said, the execution environment and that settlement environment all on the one layer. And from everything that I've seen and everyone that I've talked to, it just does not fundamentally scale. Now, I know there exist layer 1s today that have really cheap fees. This is for one of two reasons. One, there's no users there, so of course the fees are cheap, right? There's hardly any transactions. Or two, they've achieved that by centralizing. So EOS was one of the famous examples to do this, and Solana looks a lot like EOS in its kind of architecture, where you just throw as much hardware as you can at it in order to scale it up. So Solana purports to have 50,000 transactions per second compared to Ethereum's like 15 on average, but that isn't full at all. They do like 5,000 TPS, but a lot of that is just like voting of the validators. And when it's so cheap to do a transaction, there's a lot of spam as well. So comparing that across chains is also not right, because Ethereum does 15 TPS, but people are paying much more in fees to use that block space, to use that kind of space that's there. So that's the kind of one of two ways where Solana and other monolithic chains, they just throw a lot of hardware at it. And that centralizes because that means that everyday users can't run a validator, can't run a full node to verify the chain, and it becomes a trusted thing. It becomes a thing where eventually you throw so much hardware at it that it gets so expensive for anyone to be able to run this software to run the chain. It basically just replicates what we have in Web 2. So that's the high-level overview. I know there's a lot of moving parts there that probably need extra context. But one last thing I'll say is that the beautiful thing about Ethereum's approach to scaling is that because the layer 1 is a settlement layer, and because the layer 2s inherit those settlement guarantees and that kind of security, the layer 2s become a one of n trust assumption. Now what this means is that you only need to trust that one party processing your transactions on the layer 2 is honest. Whereas in a layer 1 context, you need to trust a lot of the times the majority, or you need to trust a large portion of the network for the network to keep going along, for the network to come to consensus on your transaction. Whereas on layer 2s, you don't need this. So let's just say there are only 10 people in the world running, we call them sequences or validators at layer 2. If 9 of those are censoring you for whatever reason, and that one is just not censoring you, that's all you need. Whereas if 90% of the layer 1 was censoring you, your experience is very degraded, because there's only like 1 out of 10 blocks essentially where you would be able to get your transaction in. But then if the majority of the network is, in an Ethereum context, this gets quite technical, is censoring in a certain way, I'm not going to go into the details here, the network splits off and it fragments. And what ends up happening is that you kind of don't have the scale anymore, and you don't have the nice properties of a blockchain anymore. What you have is a centralized database. So as I said, a lot of going on in there, a lot of extra context, but that's the high level technical view. And then there's the whole social side, which I could talk about for hours, but I'm not going to.
I think we definitely need to get a Sassano GPT model going, trained on all of the background videos. But we've got time for one more question before we wrap up, and then we're going to go into networking. Who wants that last question? Anyone? Right here off the back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was interested. You kind of got into it a bit with the censorship stuff. I'm interested to hear your perspective about Ethereum censorship on different levels. So whether that be at the validator level or the MEV level or the RPC level, like there's different levels that it can happen at. And I think with Tornado Cash, we recently saw an example of this. So how do you see this playing out over time?
So there's two, I guess, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Two categories of censorship on Ethereum that all of that stuff falls into. So there's transaction inclusion censorship, and this is what you were alluding to, where, say, you're talking to a third-party RPC, which is basically a software that relays your transactions to the network. We all use it. If you use MetaMask, it defaults to something called Infura. And then you can change this, and whenever you switch networks, you actually change your RPC. So if you switch to Base or Optimism, you're on a different RPC. But they basically act as a way to relay your transactions. And you can also run your own full node at home on your own hardware and use that as an RPC as well. But let's just say you're using a third party and they censor you. That's transaction inclusion censorship. And then it's not just the RPCs, it's also the MEV boost relayers, which do this. And some of them will openly censor Tornado Cash transactions. They've just blacklisted it. And that means that currently, I think the last time I checked, it was like 35%. So 35% of the network, so to speak, and this isn't the validators themselves, this is a piece of software that's like a sidecar software that gets bolted on to the validators called MEV Boost. And this is software people run to earn extra rewards from MEV. And there are things called relayers, which act as the relayers of the transactions, and they can censor if they want to. And 35% of them have, or well, not of them, I guess 35% of the network is censoring, which means that you only have a 65% chance per block to get that transaction included. And this is only Tornado Cash transactions, which is still amazing. The fact that, I mean, technically everyone on the network could censor you except one validator, and you would still eventually get your transaction included. So transaction inclusion censorship is a murky area with a lot of moving parts to it that is very difficult to solve because it all happens off chain. It all happens before it lands on chain and gets verified within a block. And there are multiple different initiatives around that. There's some called PBS, or proposer builder separation. There are things like people running non-censored relayers as part of MEV Boost. There is censorship resistant lists, which is part of PBS. There is shutterized beacon chain, which is like making sure that your transactions are private before they hit the chain, so people can have plausible deniability about what transactions they're including. So there's all of that happening on that side. Then the second category is, in Ethereum context, is unique to Ethereum, called attestation level censorship. So on Ethereum, the way proof of stake works is that every validator will attest to blocks at regular intervals. And that basically is the validator signing and saying, yes, this block is part of the chain, I validated this, it's all well and good, continue on. If 33% start not attesting to the same blocks as the other kind of, I guess, 67% or whatever it is does, that 33% will basically fork off the chain onto their own chain and be offline in the context of the main chain. Now, in Ethereum's context, because we say 33%, it's because it needs 67% to finalize. So the chain will keep progressing, but you'll have like 1 out of every 3 blocks is missed, essentially, because those validators are no longer online in the context of the chain, because they're not attesting to the same blocks as other people are, because they're basically saying, well, I'm not going to attest to this because I'm going to censor this, essentially. And that is actually relatively easy to deal with, because there are in-protocol mechanisms in place. If you go offline, you don't get slashed. You may have heard of slashing in proof of stake. What happens is there's something called an inactivity leak that kicks in, where essentially you slowly bleed ETH out until eventually you lose enough ETH that you get kicked out of the active validator set, the network readjusts itself, and the percentages readjust, and then the network heals itself, essentially. Now, if a lot of people go offline at the same time as you, something called the quadratic inactivity leak kicks in, and that will bleed a lot of ETH from you. Like, normally going offline is not a big deal, as like just you going offline on your own. But if like 30% of the network is offline, there's a lot more ETH going to be bled out, and then the network gets back to finalizing, it kicks out these validators, and it chugs along. So the only losers in this context are the people that we're trying to censor, the validators that we're trying to censor. And that's the attestation kind of level censorship going on. Now, that's at the 33% mark. If 67% were doing that, the Ethereum chain would stop altogether, because it needs 33%, at least 33% validators online. That's its liveness guarantee. So in that scenario, you have to employ social consensus, which is messy. So what that means is that the community has to come together and basically say, okay, these guys are doing something bad. They're not following the chain. They're trying to censor. So we're going to slash them. Now, as I said, this is like very messy. It's called the nuclear option, but it's relatively clean in this context, because essentially what you do is the network, and users have a choice to do this, but the 33% that aren't censoring all the nodes and the validators, they could come together and say, okay, well, we're going to implement a change that kicks all these validators out right now. We're going to burn all of their ETH, and we're going to kick them out. And then we're going to continue on. And the reason why this is messy is because you can imagine what that's going to look like. Because most of those validators have ETH that does not belong to them. It is staked through services like Lido and Coinbase and Kraken. So that option is last resort. That Ethereum could still continue, but it would be really bad. But generally, there is no incentive really to do that. The attestation level stuff hurts the person doing it, the attestation level censorship, more than it hurts the network in most scenarios, except like the worst case. So those are the two broad categories there, and yeah, it's a pretty big kind of field of discussion and research. But the nice thing is, as I said, like even if the whole network except one validator was trying to censor you, which is probably never going to happen, right? Like it's pretty big deal if that was to happen, but you would just have to wait for that one validator, and then your transaction would get included anyway, which is the beauty of the system. But it's all about obviously making sure that we have the least amount of censorship as possible in different areas, whether it's transaction inclusion or attestation. At this point in time, we have no evidence yet of attestation level censorship happening, but transaction inclusion, obviously we do, but that's for various different reasons. The reason why Flashbots, for example, it's a team that runs a relayer, is censoring. They're in the US, right? They don't want to take any chances. Their lawyers have basically said, no, you can't run a non-censoring relayer. But and there's a final thing, because I know I'm rambling. There are, as I mentioned, solutions coming out that want to remove these relayers from the system, because as I said, they are not part of the core protocol. They are sidecar software that gets plugged in. So it presents a lot of problems, not just censorship, but it also presents problems for the core developers, because for them, it's like they're looking at this core protocol spec, and then they have to consider this sidecar software that 95% of the network uses. And actually recently, because that sidecar software had a bug in it or something, and there was an upgrade to the network, the core developers didn't consider if it would cause a bug for the sidecar software, because it's not part of the defined spec. So then that software had to fix itself because the core developers aren't responsible for that, and then it becomes a bit messy. So there are various different initiatives here to kind of rectify all that.
Fantastic. And there's so much more. I mean, you can see all the videos and stuff here, but we're going to get into so much more. But for now, Anthony Sassano, thank you for joining us, and please stick around.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Thank you.
All right, folks. So we're going to wrap up very shortly. We're only a half hour over time, which is fine. The point with all these meetups, right, this is to make your brain hurt with knowledge, and then we soothe it with alcohol. So, you know, that's going to happen really soon. Couple things. If you're in Sydney, there's this really cool restaurant. It's where we do our podcast from. It's called Crypto Lulu. They've got NFTs. It gives you perks and stuff, so you can scan that QR code, or you can look up Crypto Lulu later on, or you can ask me about it. We've also got our own collection, apparently without a QR code. I'm so sorry. So Shane up the back there, the giant gentleman back there. How tall are you? 7 foot tall? Something like that? Yep. So Shane's bought one of the hoodies. I would wear it, but it's really warm in here. Thank you. Because I know I said it was cold outside. You guys turned up the heat. It's great. But you get a hoodie. You get a bit of consulting. You get this really cool NFT that was not designed by Midjourney. This was designed by someone in our community pre-AI. But I am serious. We're going to turn your chats into some sort of GPT. You know, tell me this like I'm 5 years old or something like that. Let's see what happens there, because it's some really interesting stuff. I mean, blockchain is pretty anti-fragile given how we've spread it out and how we're doing things. Like, we try to break it really fast. We're fast running everything in terms of innovation, and we're learning and making systems that are better, and we're seeing, you know, commercial TradFi coming into this space, PayPal and all that using it. Anyway, the Web3 Innovation Centre, we're in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, so this is Stone and Chalk, a group of people coming and working together. Speaking of working together, here in Melbourne, you've got a really cool group called Upside Down. They're out of Richmond. We've got a gentleman here. If you want to put your hand up, please, I'm pointing you out. Put your hand up louder. That makes sense. You're welcome, Greg. So Greg's here from Upside Down, and they've got a really cool venue. You were out there just recently, so a co-working space. Why? Because these meetups are great, but unfortunately, some people have to go off and, you know, go do their non-Web3 jobs or work in Web3 spaces that are at a WeWork. And I love WeWork. I'm in a WeWork. I've got an office there, but I have a space with Stone and Chalk where we actually get to sit with others that are in this space, and you have those water cooler conversations that lead to innovation. It's amazing. So anyway, Upside Down is out there doing that. That's up there. I've got this. So Liam, who, if you want to stand up, Liam, people got to know you a little bit already.
Sorry, I talk too much.
That's okay.
I work in marketing.
You can tell. The Web3 and AI Hackathon, as mentioned before, so that is, as the name says, great name, Web3 and AI. It's like, what is Australian DeFi Association about? Just read the words. So, Web3 and AI Hackathon.
At RMIT, if you guys want to register, my name, Liam, Liam, will get you a free ticket. I'm happy to accept all of Mark's members to come down.
So I think that we had the code DEFI, DeFi, if that runs out, LIAM, 4 letters. We try to keep it simple because, like I said, your brain hurts after this. On that note, alcohol. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Greythorn. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, all our guests.